Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're exploring a deeply moving Hindi animated fable called Barish Mein Patra Ka Ghar, which translates to The Stone House in the Rain. Now, this is just a beautifully crafted narrative, and it uncovers some really profound truths about how we view the heavy burdens we all carry around. It's a look at how we can actually find immense, literally life-saving strength in the most unexpected and honestly sometimes the most frustrating places. I came across this story recently, and it completely challenged how I think about everyday struggles. So, let's unpack it together.
Okay, let's dive into this. What if the biggest obstacle in your life was actually your greatest asset? Seriously, just keep that question in the back of your mind as we walk through this explainer today. Because this single philosophical thought totally anchors the entire narrative we're about to explore. It's all about flipping the script on our struggles.
All right, part one, the unwanted field stone. So, let's meet Shambhu. He's a hard-working organic farmer, and his chemical-free veggies are in super high demand in the local market. But he has a massive problem. Right in the dead center of his otherwise perfect, fertile field sits this giant, immovable rock. Every single time he looks at it, his heart just sinks. And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict of perspective in our story. Because to Shambhu, this rock is purely a logistical nightmare. It's costing him space for at least 10 more plants, which literally translates to a loss of 100 kilos of vegetables and all the income that comes with it. But his wife, Suman, she views it entirely differently. She doesn't see a burden at all. She sees a divine blessing, or maybe a protective message left by their ancestors. Basically, a sign that this stone will eventually bring them good, not harm.
Now, despite his absolute frustration, Shambhu respects his wife immensely. He turns to her and says, "I don't know what this stone is, but I know your words have power." And with that, he agrees to stop cursing the rock. This quiet, really tender compromise is incredibly important. Why? Because it subtly sets up the narrative tension for everything that follows. The stone is no longer just a useless rock in the dirt, it's a waiting variable.
Moving on to part two, a village in crisis.
The story shifts pretty dramatically here as the ordinary struggles of farming are suddenly overshadowed. Ominous, pitch-black, once-in-a-generation storm clouds start gathering over the village, and Shambhu's elderly father, Baba, warns of impending doom. But you see, the storm in the sky isn't the village's only problem, not by a long shot. They are completely defenseless because of their corrupt village headman, Khujli Lal. By the way, his name fittingly translates to itchy man, like someone always itching for trouble. He has systematically pocketed the village's public funds. And because of his greed, the village drains haven't been cleaned in years. On top of that, he abuses his power to harass vulnerable women in the village. He recently set his sights on Suman, and when Shambhu refused to send his wife to the Pradhan's house, Khujli Lal directly threatened to seize Shambhu's farm. So Khujli Lal's total negligence and greed have left the community completely vulnerable to the disaster that's about to strike.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an absolute catastrophe. On day one, the heavy rains hit, and just as everyone feared, Khujli Lal's unclean drains immediately overflow, sending nasty floodwater right into the streets. By day three, the relentless rain has flooded Shambhu's fields waist deep, completely destroying his organic crops. I mean, his entire livelihood is just washed away. Fast forward to day four, the floodwaters are so dangerously high they breach the village school, which is where everyone has taken shelter. And then, on day five, the crisis becomes deeply, deeply personal for our protagonist. Shambhu's elderly father, fully exposed to the elements, falls unconscious from the freezing cold.
The situation is completely desperate now. There are no doctors around, no medicine, and the roads to the hospital completely cut off by the floodwaters. Shambhu knows for a fact his father will die if he doesn't find him shelter immediately. Driven by pure desperation, Shambhu wades out into the freezing, waist-deep water of his ruined field. And he stands right before that giant, unyielding stone with a hammer and chisel in hand. His plan? To shatter the beast that has plagued his field all these years and use the fragmented rocks to build a makeshift wall to shield his dying father from the freezing wind.
This brings us to part three, from breaking to sculpting.
So Shambhu swings his heavy hammer with all his might. Once, twice, dozens of times. Lightning is literally crashing overhead. The whole village is watching. But the stone, it doesn't even chip. It is completely unyielding. Dropping to his knees in absolute despair, he screams out that the stone is a curse. But this physical struggle, it's about to turn into a profound mental realization. He is suddenly approached by his dying father, who has been carried out to the field. And his father reveals a shocking secret he's kept for decades. 40. That is exactly how many years ago, When the father first inherited this very field, he too took a hammer and chisel to this exact same rock. And guess what? He too failed completely.
The father looks at Shambhu, weak but resolute, and delivers the life-changing advice that really forms the beating heart of this entire story. He says, "Don't break it, sculpt it." The father explains that his massive mistake 40 years ago was viewing the stone as an enemy that had to be destroyed. And guys, this is the central metaphor we really need to grasp here. So often in life, we exhaust ourselves trying to smash and destroy the very obstacles that, if we just treated them differently, could be shaped into exactly what we need to survive.
So the crucial point is this entirely new methodology the father passes down. Step 1, stop viewing the obstacle as your enemy. Step 2, treat the obstacle as a friend, something you can actually work alongside. And step 3, patiently sculpt it to serve your needs. When you make it your own, his father whispers to him, it will naturally serve you. Shambhu really listens. He drops that heavy sledgehammer, picks up his tools with a completely new mindset, and begins not to smash, but to carefully, purposefully carve.
All right, part 4, the stone house miracle.
Applying this new philosophy, Shambhu works tirelessly in the pouring rain for days to shape the stone. He isn't fighting it anymore, right? He's working with it. Now, noticing this defiance, the corrupt Pradhan, Kujli Lal, sends 2 of his goons under the cover of a pitch-black night to destroy Shambhu's hard work. One of the goons takes a huge hammer and swings it with full force at the freshly carved stone wall. But miraculously, the hammer violently bounces right back and hits the goon in the head. The sculpted stone is incredibly, almost magically resilient. Shambhu wakes up from the noise, catches the saboteurs red-handed, and bravely fights them off. This sends a very clear message back to the corrupt Pradhan that he is not going to be intimidated.
The very next morning, as Shambhu continues to carve, he strikes a section of the rock that chips away to reveal something incredible. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this inner layer. It's a rare, surprisingly smooth, and shiny interior that looks exactly like precious marble. It turns out, this wasn't just some useless field rock taking up space. By having the patience to sculpt rather than smash, Shambhu unlocked a hidden beauty and immense value that had literally been sitting right there in his field his entire life. Suman was absolutely right. It was a blessing in disguise all along.
Through sheer perseverance and a massive shift in perspective, Shambhu finally finishes the structure, and it's amazing. He carves out 3 incredibly sturdy walls directly from the massive stone block. He meticulously shapes a perfectly sloped roof that just effortlessly deflects the relentless monsoon rains. While the entire village around them is submerged, the inside of this stone sanctuary remains completely dry. He brings his freezing father inside, and this safe, warm shelter effectively saves his father's life.
Which brings us to our final act, Part 5, Triumph over Greed.
As the relentless storm finally begins to break and the floodwaters slowly start to recede, Kujli Lal shows up. He's seething with jealousy over Shambhu's miraculous stone shelter, and he makes a desperate play for power. He marches up with his thugs, attempting to illegally seize the house by claiming the rock and the land actually belonged to the government. But he severely underestimates the community. The villagers, who, remember, were left to literally drown in the school while Kujli Lal hid safely in his mansion, they completely abandon the corrupt Pradhan. They encircle Shambhu to protect him. They rebel, proudly declaring that a true leader is someone who provides shelter in the storm, not one who exploits his people. United together, they banish Kujli Lal and his goons for good.
As the corrupt Pradhan flees, the sun finally breaks through the clouds. The morning light hits the newly carved stone structure, reflecting brilliantly off those shiny marble-like walls, so that the whole thing gleams like gold. When someone asks what they should name the new structure, the answer is simple and perfect: the stone house. As the quote beautifully puts it, because in the rain, only the stone survives, and that becomes our strength. Shambhu's father admits he thought the stone was a lifelong curse, but Suman's unwavering faith and Shambhu's willingness to sculpt his own fate completely turned it into their ultimate salvation.
And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway for us today. Take a look at your own life right now. What useless stones are sitting right in the middle of your field? What frustrations or massive obstacles are you currently wasting all your energy trying to smash and destroy? Maybe, just maybe, if you put down the sledgehammer, pick up a chisel, and change your perspective, you'll find that those very obstacles are just waiting to be patiently sculpted into your greatest strengths. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today, and I really hope this story inspires you to start sculpting. See you next time.